You already know that we can make a noun clause with a question word. In this case, the noun clause is acting as an object. When we use a question word, the noun clause is simply an embedded information question. We can also begin a noun clause with if or whether. Noun clauses that begin with if or whether are for embedded no questions. For example, the question, "Is there a library here?" requires a yes or no response. So, when we make the question into a noun clause, we can either use if or whether to precede it. Where's Jake? Is she at work today? I haven't seen her. What? There she is. What is she doing? We can embed this question into another statement. The question is an information question, so we will keep where in the noun clause. Emily wonders where Jake is. This question is a yes or no question, so the word we use to begin the noun clause must be if or whether. Is she at work today? Emily wonders if Jake is at work today. Here we used if, but we can also use whether. Emily wonders is the independent clause. Whether Jake is at work today is the dependent clause, the noun clause, and in this case, it is acting as an object. What does Emily wonder? She wonders whether Jake is at work today. What is she doing? Is Jake looking for something? We can make this question into an embedded noun clause. Let's start our sentence with she wants to know. She wants to know if Jake is looking for something. We could also say she wants to know whether Jake is looking for something. Notice the word order in the question. It's different from the word order you see in the noun clause. Also, notice that when we use whether, it means the same thing as when we use if.
Whether or not I find you today is irrelevant. I will find you eventually.
Can you find the noun clause in this sentence? That's right. Whether or not I find you today is the noun clause. And what job does it have in this sentence? Is it an object or a subject? Well, it's clearly a subject because you see the verb is and the rest of the predicate irrelevant. Notice in this example I used or not. This is just another option for communicating the same idea. whether or not I find you today is irrelevant is the same as saying whether I find you today is irrelevant. I could also say whether I find you or not is irrelevant, and it means the same thing. Okay, well, when Emily was looking out at Jake, wondering what she was doing, she held up some signs to ask her just exactly what was going on. First, she asked, "What are you doing?" Then she held up another sign that says, "Let me know if you need help." Where's the noun clause in this sentence? It's if you need help. We can say this same sentence in several different ways. These are all the ways we can use if and whether in noun clauses. Let me know if you need help. Let me know whether you need help. Let me know whether or not you need help. Let me know whether you need help or not. And let me know if you need help or not. All of these sentences mean the exact same thing. It's your choice as a speaker and writer which one you want to use. However, whether is slightly more formal, and if is slightly more informal. It is important to mention that even though we can turn questions into noun clauses, they often look a lot different in their noun clause form. Let me show you what I mean. Look at this question. Do you know what Jake was looking for? I can make a noun clause out of this question. Tell me if you know. Tell me if you know what Jake was looking for. In the question, we need the word do. However, in the noun clause, there is no do. Let's look at another example. Did Jake find something? I don't know. Let's see if she found anything. In this case, we're asking a question about something that happened in the past. So we need the auxiliary verb did. You already know this about questions. However, in the noun clause, you can see there is no auxiliary verb. This is something important to be aware of when using noun clauses with if and whether. Okay, now that you know how to make noun clauses with if and whether, let's see what happened after all with Jake. I wonder if she found what she was looking for. I wonder if she found it in the tree. Nope. Oh, it looks like she found it on the ground. What is it? A cookie? Oh, Jake. I wonder if she ate that after it had been sitting on the ground.
Noun clauses with if and whether. Guided practice. Let's review what you learned with Emily and Jake in the last video and do some guided practice. But first, I want to tell you about a little problem we've had at UC Irvine. A robot invasion. One day, these robots suddenly appeared on campus, and I had no idea whether they were sent here for good or for evil. What are these robots doing here? Can you guess? I first asked myself, are they collecting data? I was worried that they were sent here as spies, maybe from a different planet. Are they collecting data is a yes-no question. It starts with an auxiliary or helping verb, like are, and is followed by a subject. In the last video, you learned about embedded yes-no questions. Those are sentences with an independent clause first, like I wonder, and a noun clause that starts with if, like if they are collecting data. Now the question is in a noun clause, and the subject-verb order is different. You can also say, I wonder if they're collecting data or not. I wonder whether they're collecting data. Whether is slightly more formal than if. I wonder whether or not they're collecting data, or I wonder whether they're collecting data or not. They all basically mean the same thing. And this is what it looks like for any sentence. And I wonder is just one way to start these embedded yes-no questions. You can also say, I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you know? Or can you tell me? Those last two start questions. And these are just a few examples. These are all polite ways to find out information. For example, this student could ask, what are you doing here? Or he could say, could you tell me what you're doing here? With a noun clause. That's more polite. It's important to be polite to robots, especially if they're spies sent from another planet. To review, remember these things when you're using noun clauses with if and whether. First, notice the subject, verb, word order here in the noun clause. Next, notice the location of the or nots. Here, you can put whether or not together, but here, you can't put or not directly after if. If is followed by the subject and the verb. Now, do you want to know what the robots really do? They deliver food. They're not evil after all. Okay, now you're ready to practice. Have fun!
Noun clauses starting with that.
My glasses.
Your sunglasses?
Yeah. I don't know where I left them. I don't know if I left them here or in a classroom.
Oh, I believe that you might find your sunglasses in the restroom.
The restroom. Oh, you saw them there?
I've seen them. I'm guessing that you'll see them near the sink.
The sink. Ah, thanks, Judy. Bye.
Emily forgot that she has her sunglasses on her head. The fact that she has forgotten does not surprise me at all. She's lucky to have a friend like me. It's obvious that I'm helping her out by sending her to the restroom.
You may have learned that a noun clause functions as a noun. Noun clauses are often used as embedded questions. Emily doesn't know where she put her sunglasses. Emily doesn't know if she left them here or in a classroom. WH words like where, are for information questions. If and whether are for yes-no questions. To give direct information, we use the word that. I believe that Emily will find them in the restroom. I am guessing that Emily will see them near the sink. That Emily will find them in the restroom. That Emily will see them near the sink. Let's look at the position of these that clauses. When a that clause is the object of a sentence, the word that is optional in spoken English. We usually leave it out in conversation. I believe Emily will find them in the restroom. I am guessing Emily will see them near the sink. In formal writing, however, we tend to leave that in the sentence. Noun clauses starting with that can also be the subject of a sentence. For instance, that Emily will find them in the restroom is my belief. Or, that Emily will see them near the sink is my guess. If a that clause is the subject of a sentence, the word that is not optional. It is required. Here is another example. I believe. Or, that Emily will see them near the sink is my guess. If a that clause is the subject of a sentence, the word that is not optional. It is required. Here is another example. That she has forgotten about the sunglasses on her head doesn't surprise me. Actually, it is uncommon to start a sentence with that. It is more common to start with the fact that. The fact that she has forgotten doesn't surprise me. In spoken English, that can be omitted. The fact she has forgotten doesn't surprise me. In formal writing, of course, the sentence is much clearer to readers if no words are omitted. Other expressions that can be used to make a that clause sound more natural at the beginning of a sentence include the idea that, the belief that. As mentioned earlier, it is common to place the that clause at the end of the sentence because if the subject is too long, the sentence may be difficult to understand. To accomplish this, replace the subject with a non-referential it. It doesn't surprise me that she has forgotten. Remember that when placed in the object position, the word that is often omitted in spoken English. The non-referential it can only be used with that. It cannot be used with expressions such as the fact that, the idea that, or the belief that. Let's look at two more sentences. That I am helping Emily by sending her to the restroom is obvious. It is obvious that I am helping Emily by sending her to the restroom. Which way is more common? That's right, the second one. The noun clause is in the object position. Notice that clauses can follow adjectives. In this case, it is the adjective obvious plus the noun clause that I am helping Emily. The subject of the sentence is often it, but not always. That clauses can follow adjectives in sentences that refer to people too. Emily is lucky that she has a friend like me with the adjective lucky plus the noun clause that she has a friend like me. In this lesson, you learned that noun clauses can start with that. I'm sure that you will enjoy the ending of this video.
Bathroom, sink, sink, sink. What, they're not here? Near the sink. Oh my gosh.
Noun clauses with that. Guided practice. Let's do some guided practice with the kinds of exercises you'll see when you practice independently. In the last video, you learned that noun clauses can be the object of a sentence, like this. I'm surprised that Judy didn't tell her that her glasses are on top of her head. The object is the most common place for a that clause, and that can be optional here. I can also say, I'm surprised Judy didn't tell her without the that. Finally, that clauses can follow an adjective, like surprised. Now let's look at that clauses as a subject. That Judy didn't tell her is surprising. That clauses in the subject are not common. When we use them, the that is not optional. You must use it. And we more often start the clause with the fact, idea, or belief that. Judy also told you when a that clause is in the subject, you can make it an object by replacing the clause with the non-referential it, adding the rest of the main clause, and then adding the noun clause at the end. That Judy didn't tell her is surprising is the same as it is surprising that Judy didn't tell her. Just be careful not to add the fact, the belief, or the idea here when it's an object. Let's practice some error correction exercises. These will help you in your own writing. Here's a sentence. Judy didn't tell her is not right. Let's check these things. First, identify or ID the noun clause in C. Here's the main verb of the sentence, and here's another subject-verb group. So this must be the noun clause. Check. Next, is anything missing? How about the noun clause marker? That. When the noun clause is in the subject, we must have that. If it's in the object, you can leave it out. So here, we need to keep this that. That was the mistake. Now let's just check the subject-verb order in this noun clause. Subject first, then verb. That's correct. Finally, is the verb correct in the independent clause? Here we have is. And because we use a singular verb after a noun clause, this is correct. Here's the correct sentence. That Judy didn't tell her is not right. You could also say the fact that Judy didn't tell her is not right, and that's actually more common. Let's try one more. I don't like. The fact that Judy didn't tell her. Where's the noun clause? Here's the marker, the fact that, and here are the subject and verb. So this is the noun clause. However, we have a problem here. This noun clause is a sentence by itself, but noun clauses are like babies. They're dependent on a parent, the independent clause. A dependent clause by itself is called a sentence fragment. It's incomplete. To fix this, we need to take away this period and make it one sentence together. Now, it's correct. Okay, now you're ready to practice on your own. Judy says, I'm sure that you can do it.